So I don't know how the topic came up, but it was about time. What is time? And then I started kind of thinking about the difference between how Christians view time compared to how Buddhists view time. And there's a huge difference there. And how much our perception of time affects everything we do and say and how we are in the world. And although we hardly ever think about it, subconsciously there's this feeling of either running out of time or not enough time or too much time. And so even though it's not on the forefront, I think we're always dealing with time. We're either running late or we get there too soon, or in all kind of little ways we're wrestling with this concept of time. And so last night I went to go walk the dogs, and when I came back in the house I looked at the microwave and it said 11:11. And Shane will have to tell us what 11:11 means, because I know it's a sacred number, but I never see it, so it's not a part of my world. So I'm not a big 11:11 person. But it struck me that I was thinking about the concept of time, and then I walk in and I'm unleashing the dogs and I look up and there's 11:11 on the microwave. So I quickly grabbed my phone and I snapped a picture of it. And I didn't even make the connection to it being like relevant to the topic today. And then when I looked at the picture, it was a weird picture, and I don't have it on that computer, but let me put it here and I'll show you guys. Do you see that?
That's trippy.
It is trippy, right? Yeah. And so not only did that picture kind of turn out like a Matrix kind of thing, but even after I snapped the picture, I was so worried that it was going to change before I got my camera out and got my phone and all that stuff. But even after I took the picture, I stood there and there was this huge amount of time and it stayed 11:11. And I was like, am I supposed to be doing something right now? Or maybe did I set the time for 11 minutes and 11 seconds? And that's not really the clock. So I reached over there to open up the microwave door to see if it would change. And when I reached for the handle, it changed to 11:12. And I was going, what the hell is happening right now, And then, when I looked at that picture, I said, holy, and when I showed my wife, I'm like, I couldn't have taken this picture and done that if I tried, And so I posted it on Facebook, and then Shane said, it's relevant to your topic tomorrow. And I was like, what? Oh my God, Shane, do you want to tell us anything about 11:11?
Well, so 11:11, personally, I was born at 11:11 in the morning.
Oh, wow.
Most people don't know their birth time unless now I'm finding out if you're into astrology. That's really important. But growing up Southern Baptist, it did not mean anything out of this world, but it meant something to my mother in some way, which she never said, except it was the time that I was born, because she would always go, oh, it's 11:11, it's 11:11, and even if I was living in a different state or whatever, she would call and say, oh, it's 11:11 in Texas, or it's 11:11, so she brought that to my attention all the time. And then as I tried to find out what it meant in the world, I found out it means a lot of things to a lot of different people. And a lot of them will not tell you what it means to them. There was a Buddhist group that I went to that the building that they were in, the address was 1111. And like we were there for something else, and I was trying to talk to him, and then I could tell when I asked about it that everybody was like, "Don't answer that. Don't answer that." Or, like, don't. She's not worthy to know what that means to us. Like, and so I've encountered that too. So it's interesting, but it does have power, even if it's just the power of. It reminds me of I'm here. I'm here for something. I was born for whatever reason, and that's my birth time. And that, but the ascension, like the 1111, like it's a portal kind of thing. So when you were talking about open the microwave door, I was like, what if you would have opened the microwave door when it was 1111? Would you have opened a portal?
Right.
I don't know that I believe that, but it's like some of the things that I encounter when I'm trying to figure out what 1111 means to the world. If like you make a wish at 1111, whatever you're thinking about at 1111 is a divine message for you. Yeah, there's angel numbers. Like if you look, there's numerology that you can look at about what it means. So yeah, there's like a myriad of meaning behind it, but it comes to me was that I was born at 1111, which I think is pretty auspicious in this world that I'm finding out. So.
You came out of a portal.
I did. The divine feminine.
That's right.
I'm here to lift us up, understand the concept of mother being.
George, does 1111 have any significance to you?
I had an ex-girlfriend who would always like say, "Oh, it's 1111, make a wish."
Really?
And when she said it, I was like, "Oh, yeah, I've heard that before."
Mm.
Yeah. From San Antonio.
Really?
Yeah.
She didn't go through a portal in a microwave and disappear, did she?
Nah.
No.
Different kind of portal.
Well, yeah, so I think that's awesome, and so regardless of what 1111 means or what it meant that I saw it on the microwave or whatever, there's tons of thoughts about time. So as a Christian growing up, there was a real emphasis on the world being created. And then there was a real emphasis on Jesus splitting time with his birth. There was before Jesus and after Jesus. And then end of time. So it was almost like everything that we talked about and studied and discussed, it either had something to do with the beginning or the birth of Jesus and the relevance of Jesus or the end of time. Whereas in Buddhism, it took me a long time to figure out what their concept of time was, because it was all, really a new way of thinking about time. And so if you believe in reincarnation and that you've been here infinite times and you'll be back infinite times, then time takes on a new meaning, right? And there's not a rush to... whoever has the most toys wins. Get all the pleasure you can out of this life, destroy the world, and get what you can because you're going to die. Then you start having to think about karma and what your next life is going to be and what your future lives are going to be, and then what you did in your past lives to put you in the situation that you're in now, and what you can learn in this life, the lessons you can glean to learn valuable lessons in this life so you don't have to repeat them again in the next life. So there's just on and on. And then, the Buddha, so basically there's chunks of time in Buddhism and Hinduism that are called kalpas, or yugas. And I mean, these are unbelievable amounts of time. Like, you can't even fathom the amount of time, Yeah, it's just like, and when they describe that length of time almost being infinite, and that is only one kalpa. And to put that in perspective, it's like our eon, or what would be another word for it that we use? I'm not sure really. But there's an analogy that if somebody walks past a mountain, one of the biggest mountains in the world, only once a year, and they touch it with some silk cloth. So they walk by the biggest mountain every year, and they walk by it and they barely touch it with a silk cloth, that mountain will be sandpapered down to nothing, and still we haven't got to the end of a kalpa or a yuga. Does that bring it a little bit more into perspective?
Yeah.
And so that seems wild, but they say that in Egypt that it used to be a fertile land. Like they used to raise crops and harvest crops, and there was water, and there was times of flooding where the pyramids actually have water damage on them from so much flooding. And now it's all sand. So think about how long ago that was a fertile area. And when I went to Odessa, I worked in the oil field in Odessa, Texas. And when we used to go out to the wells, and we were called roustabouts, and we would clean up like oil spills, and we would fix various things, and we'd paint stuff. And you're out there in the middle of the West Texas desert, and I'm looking around, I'm finding shells everywhere, like seashells. And I wasn't from there, so I asked one of the guys, I said, how in the world am I finding seashells everywhere out here in the desert? He said, dude, this used to be the bottom of the sea. I'm like, what? So think about the length of time it was when Odessa, Midland was the bottom of the sea, But once again, we talk about relative truth and ultimate truth. So in Buddhism, the relative truth is there's these huge amounts of time called kalpas. But the ultimate truth is it's all a part of illusion. It's all a part of Maya. It's all a part of the ignorance, because there is no time. And there is no you. There is only the Buddha nature. And time is basically a teaching tool that is utilized for you to learn that there is no time. And that, well, that's enough. That's all I'm going to say about that. But does anything come up for you when I talk about time?
Well, I think it was interesting, and I mean, I've mentioned here before that the reason I cannot remember, I started looking more into astrology during the lockdown and COVID kind of thing, when I was stuck at home for long periods of time. And the time of Christ is also reflected in astrology as the Piscean age, which Jesus also, the symbol of the fish. And so I think that's really interesting. And that age is actually coming to an end. So it is the end of time happening in 2020.
Really?
Mm-hmm. And I'm not an expert, so, do your own research. Like I said, I just started looking at this kind of stuff, and it's just really interesting. And even if you don't believe in it or whatever, it's a very interesting story. And I remember also, I grew up in the church, the Baptist church, and so at the end of times, Jesus was going to come down from heaven riding a white horse. That imagery was very much talked about. And at one point after graduate school, I was working at a computer startup, and there were a lot of people there that were from India. And I formed a friendship with this wonderful woman who grew up Hindu. and we would go to lunch and we would talk and we would kind of compare notes about things and what they. It was just fascinating about the commonalities that we had. But one of the things that I found out was that Krishna came back in multiple stories that also reflected some um, Native American stories that I've heard. But that the next incarnation of Krishna, which sounds a lot like Christ, is going to be Krishna coming back on a white horse. And I was like, wait, what? I was like, how is this? So it's really interesting to hear other people's stories, and then you realize, like, we're all doing the best we can to explain what we're trying to talk about using language. And of course, we're going to use different metaphor depending on our culture, depending on our surroundings, depending on our understandings. And so I think it's really interesting how we have a lot of the same stories in different words.
Absolutely. Yeah, we all have a little insight in trying to grasp this reality and put it into some form of words, and every culture does that differently. And so I find that interesting. And so what comes next? The Age of Aquarius?
It does.
This is the dawning of the Age of Aquarius. The Age of Aquarius.
It does. Yeah, I don't know what exactly that means. There are people who know what that means a lot better than I do. But it is a different time. And the resistance that you're seeing to this, that we're having, is, the trouble, the conflict, the clashing, is resistance to change, and that happens. That's part of the nature of humanity as well.
That there's a new age dawning, and the powers that be, or the old structure, is fighting tooth and nail not to go into this new change.
But it's inevitable.
Yeah. George, do you have anything come up for you when we talk about time or any of these subjects?
A couple of things came up when you guys were talking about time. There was a first thing that came to mind was there was a preview for the movie Tag. I don't know if you saw that. And it's like three guys who are sitting next to each other, and one guy is like, "We're gonna meet at 9:30." The other guy looks at the other guy and he's like, "All right, 9:30." And the other guy looks at the other one and he's like, "I don't have a watch." And the last one's like, "Time to construct." And I was like, so let me think about that. Just how different people see time, I think, and the importance of it. One guy just decided not to wear a watch. I think that in that sense it is relative. And I was talking to somebody who was talking about what was it called? Spiro. I can't remember what it's called. It's like a spirituality term, and they're talking about how it's like different colors based upon like what you're looking at. I'm trying to remember what it's called right now. And she was talking specifically about how as societies move in one direction and move in another direction, there's this change that comes about with time, and how some of the older thoughts hold back the new thoughts. And for example, how the progressive ones want to go really fast and make the change, whereas the older thoughts are holding them back. But it's important because if it's too fast to change, I don't know. It was just that was something else that came up in my head. I think that I remember that you had said that I think last time that or the time before that, the time is an illusion. And I thought about that a lot, because
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
When I was in my early 20s, somebody that was older than me said something. It says, as you get, that was significantly older, and I thought was a wise person, said, as you get older, there are so fewer firsts that happen in your life. And I remember why he had said that was because I was the first person who ever called him on a cell phone.
Mm.
And so, and because I was like an early adapter for cell phones, I was to go to work. I was like, I got plenty to say to people. Like, I loved it. And so I kept that piece of wisdom because, or I thought it was wisdom because that person was older than me. But I realized, like, now that they were just an old person stuck in their ways. Because as I get older, like, there are so many firsts that I haven't done yet. Like, there's so many things to do. There's so many new experiences to be had. And so I think that also helps you with your relationship to this construct that we have for time, is how you're using it.
Well, I heard something a couple months ago where this guy said, suddenly I have more time behind me than I have in front of me. And I started thinking about that, and so this, well, you can say that, I don't know. But this guy's almost 70 years old, the one that said that. But nobody really knows how much time you have in front of you, right? But when you get middle-aged or you start getting a little older, I'm 48, getting close to 50, I wonder if I have 50 more years in front of me. And so that changes how you see time. Any thoughts about that?
That's exactly along the lines of what I've been thinking. Like, Lori, I went to school for so long, and people were like, you should do this and you should do that, and I was like, no, not yet. I'm gonna hold off on that because I need to do this thing. And hey, why don't you do this thing? I'm like, not right now because I gotta do this other thing. And then I left school. I graduated, and then I went to another school, and then I just got degrees. And every time that someone was telling me, hey, like, do this thing, I'm like, not yet. And so I've gone to the point where right now I have I'm working on another master's, and I'm just like, people are like, hey, like, blah blah blah, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not holding back. Because for so long I've put off a lot of things because I was like, I'm gonna focus on this thing that I think is important. But in that sense that I did that, I don't know that I missed out on things, but I definitely like postponed them. And I'm kind of tired of doing that. I don't want to do that anymore. And I think about that as far as like, I don't, there's no promised amount of time going forward. And so I'd like to not pull back anymore as far as that's concerned. And so that's one of those things where that's exactly why I woke up early to go for a walk and why I did yoga, whatever. Because so many other days I would have just kind of been like, I'm sleeping. Like, and to me, like, it's important that I enjoy my body and that I feel comfortable in it, and I can really feel and know what I can do versus, I don't know. For so long, I was like, I'm really tired from school. I'm really tired from whatever. I'm not doing anything, and I didn't really enjoy that. And so maybe when I was 20, I didn't really put that thought into that or enjoy it as much as I could have. And so now I'm gonna try.
Definitely. George, when you were talking about the four guys, and one said let's meet at 9:30, and the other one like agreed, and the other one said I don't have a watch, and the other one said time is a construct. There's all of our different perceptions, and I deal with that every day with my coworkers and everybody else's. How radically different we all see the world, right? But I noticed that when I went to India, and I'm sure it's the same with other cultures, is my perception as an American white male, is totally different than a lot of people's, right? And then when I got there, I realized that time was different over there. If they said that the bus was going to leave at 3, that could mean 4 or 5 or 6, or whenever they got the bus fixed, or after they changed the tire, or when they got the stuff loaded. It didn't mean 3 o'clock, because I would show up at 2:30 with my luggage ready to go, and the bus wouldn't even be there. And then, the bus might not show up until 3:30 or 4. And I'm over there going nuts. Like, you said 3 o'clock. You said 3 o'clock. I've been here since 2:30. And they're looking at me like, what is the matter with this guy? And so time takes on a whole different dimension, and it drove me crazy. All day long, I'm like, but you said, you know what I mean? Any thought? Shane, you were going to say something?
Well, I was thinking about the first time that I got to, I remember that that concept being with the Hispanic culture, right? Like there's this relaxed, fluidity of time, and also like getting in a line. Like I don't want, it's weird, but this was when I was younger, and so it's not really, I'm not trying to say a stereotype, but line up in a straight line. They would just kind of gather, and the next person that goes first. And so the first time I got to go overseas, I went to Italy, and we were taking a tour, and the Italian, which is kind of very also like the Hispanic culture in a way, they had the siestas in the afternoon, and they were still doing this, and I remember we were on this tour, and they said the things that were said about the people who were out after lunch and before the evening were mad dogs and Englishmen. And that just was so insightful, because somehow this white English background that we share, Kylie, is about go, 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 precise timing, this Protestant work ethic. You have to work really, really, really hard, and you don't deserve anything unless you're productive, and you see that play out in our politics, and it's just this
it's all about doing and not being.
It's a warped mentality.
And if you're not doing something, you should feel guilty. There's a guilt that comes from not doing and wasting time.
You can power over people that you can make fear, and that you make feel guilty.
You're wasting time. Wasting time.
Yeah. And you make up time to do that to people.
So, 2 notes on that. I've been to Italy with my sister, and she was there for a semester, and she said exactly that. Over there, if people said 3 o'clock, they meant, an hour later. And they just roll in, and then you could not be angry with them, because that's how it was. But I think that my most frustrating experience with that is I lived in Grenada, so I was in the Caribbean for 2 years. And over there, I remember I arrived and people were like, time's slow over here. And I was like, it seems to be going at about the same speed as mine. I don't know. And I remember we walked up to a register, and it was at a grocery store. There was a young lady, or clerk, who was on the phone. And so we walked up to the register, and the guy was like, stop, put down your phone, let's go. And the lady was like, she gave him the dirtiest look ever. Continued with her phone call, And she went ahead and like charged him, and she took her time to take the next person. And it was right in that moment where I was educated very quickly that over there things will happen at the time they're going to happen. Even though you think you're going to go to the grocery store for one item and it's going to take you 10 minutes, you're going to be back in an hour. You know, like it just is. And I think that was really frustrating because I was there as a student and I needed to be like in and out. Like I'm like, oh, I got like 20 minutes to go do this thing. I'm going to go do it right now, and that never worked. And so, yeah, I could see the differences in the different cultures for sure. And it's funny that you should say that Hispanic cultures are a little bit more relaxed about time, because I think we are. We run late, but I've never experienced running late like Grenada or Italy. Like that was like Italy was even less ridiculous than Grenada. I felt like Grenada was like the most ridiculous because
it's all on a spectrum.
yeah, it was like extreme. Like if you want to order food, like you want to be somewhat quick, you would order an hour ahead, just so that you would wait half an hour when you got there. Like instead of like thinking that you're just gonna get there and pick it up and go, like that would never happen. Never ever. If you walked up and you ordered before calling in, it was an hour and a half. Like you'd wait there at least while they're doing whatever they were doing. And so, yeah, definitely like the difference in cultures and the way that they see time is, yeah, I can totally relate to that.
I have a beautiful story with my Lama Tuku Sori Dechen Rinpoche. He was here in San Antonio, and I had set up a teaching for him at this Buddhist organization. And he was here at the house, and I felt like we were running out of time, and he wasn't even ready yet. And my anxiety level was through the roof, as normal. And I kept going, Rinpoche, we need to get going. We should be already on the road. It takes an hour to get there. We gotta go. And he kept saying, we'll always get there at exactly the right time. We'll always be there at exactly the right time. And I said, no, but you don't understand. Like, I got to meet the guy. We got to set up. We might have to, rearrange the chairs. Like, we got to go. And he's just walking around, talking, taking his sweet time. And I'm just losing it, And so we finally get in the car, and I start speeding. And he says, he kept touching me on the arm. Slow down. We'll be there at exactly the right time. Slow down. There's no need to hurry. We'll be there exactly the right time. And I was worried about getting lost. I wasn't sure where this place was. I don't know who my point of contact was, And so I rush, and we finally get there, and there's nobody there, and the doors are locked. And we're way early. And so I'm like, oh my God, this is a disaster, And I'm just losing it, and he's calm and peaceful and, not a care in the world. And when there was a guy there that it looked like he was struggling with homelessness, and we found out that he was, So we wound up going over there and talking to that guy, and Rinpoche invited him to go in the back. Behind the place there was a swing set. And so him and this guy that was there walked around the back of this building, and I'm like calling on the cell phone. I'm pissed off. I'm yelling. I'm leaving messages for the people that at the church. I can't get anybody to answer. I finally walk around, and Rinpoche and this guy are on the swing set. And they're back there swinging. And I'm just, oh my God, this is terrible. This is the worst thing. This is the worst day of my life, And then finally this car pulls up, and this lady has the key to the door. And I want to yell at her and scream at her, but I don't. And so we get in, and I'm just like, we finally get everything all set up, and the candles lit and everything ready. And then people start showing up, and people come in, and they're talking and sharing, sitting down, and they're thanking me for being there, and then they're just like, but where's the Lama? We're here to see a Lama. and I looked around, the place was completely full. And I was like, oh shit, he's back there on the swing set. So I run out the back door and I'm like, Ricochet, they're waiting for you. They're waiting for you, you know? And he's like, okay, okay. And so he tells that guy, do you want to come in? And he's like, yeah, sure, you know? So they come walking in the back door and Ricochet walks in and everybody stands up and they're bowing. And they already have this chair that's like a throne set up for him. And he sits down and he just goes into his teaching and his meditation. And it was just like perfect timing, you know? Everything just happened in perfect timing. And then afterwards, we were able to give that guy a ride to this homeless facility and hang out with him and get to know him a little better and everything. And so everything fell right into place perfectly. But yet I was pissed off and annoyed and agitated throughout the whole thing, you know? Because of my perception of time and what should be happening and my expectations. I know y'all don't identify with any of that, right? That's just a Kylie thing?
Yeah, never in a rush, ever, ever.
Let me read this to you real quick, and then we can start closing it out. I would like to know what you think this means, or what this means to you. Time is a learning device, which will be abolished when it is no longer useful. Life is a school of remembering. Time is used until we realize that time has never actually existed and that we have always been in eternity, that we have always been God, that we have always been the Buddha nature. Yeah. Time is used until we realize that it is no longer useful, that we have always been in eternity, and that we have always been God, the Buddha nature, the source, or whatever. What do you think about time being a learning device?
Well, when you talk about Buddhism and the reincarnation, I mean, to me, like, you know, you live lifetimes, right? And so you're able to learn the lessons that you need to learn to be able to attain, you know, enlightenment. And so, I mean, in that sense, it makes sense. Like, you would, you know, kind of have to go through all that until you learn the lessons that need to be taught, until you're able to reach that point. I would say just as a, like, outside of Buddhism, I think that yeah, I mean, like, I think the time is only useful like when you actually absolutely need it. Like, if you're on vacation or you're whatever, like, well, I don't know. My sister's type A, so never mind. But if I'm on my own, I really don't pay attention to the clock. And yeah, I don't put much thought into that. And so, I mean, I guess in that sense, like, it is only useful while you need it, and then after you no longer need it, you don't pay attention to it as much, I think. But I don't know.
Thank you, George. Thank you, George.
You're welcome.
I identify with what you said, seriously. You use it as a tool when you need it, but then when you don't need it, there's no sense of to keep track of time.
Yeah, so the big ideas of time don't affect me. Like the idea of eons, or what did you say, Kalphas?
Yugas and Kalphas.
Kalphas, like those kind of things. Like, I feel eternal. So, and temporal, but I do feel that. But what hits me with time is the minutia of it. And like, as you were speaking, I was like, an experience came up for me about when I was a single mom working a full-time job with a toddler, and I would have to go through these cycles of very little sleep, and trying to get up and get her ready and get her to daycare and get to work. And I was a great employee, but there were times that I like flew in the door at 8 or 8:01 or whatever, and my boss, who wasn't there, would call, got to where she would call, and if I didn't pick up the phone when she answered, my whole day was ruined. It didn't matter that I was doing the job of 2 or 3 people, that I was a great employee, that I was a great friend, but if I was 1 minute late for her office, she would make my life miserable. And I just think about people like that and how they've used time to like destroy people, and have judgment. And I will say, like, I got to a point where I was like so punctual, and I would just get angry at people who weren't, and I would follow that mode of operation. And now I'm like releasing all that toxic lesson, which was a lesson that if you invent something, you can use it as a weapon, not necessarily, I mean, like to weaponize it, I guess, against people. And then and this woman had also been a single mother, but instead of her having any sympathy or empathy or anything, she would just, hang on to the one thing that I wasn't great at. And it wasn't even a character flaw. It was literally like I was an exhausted, worn out, struggling to, live my life single mom.
Yeah, I think I relate to that totally too, about having a sense of control and time being a way to control other people. I think one thing that COVID is teaching us now is time is a construct. They wanted us there at the office at 8 o'clock, and they wanted us to clock out at 5, and that's what our job was, to be there at 8 and to clock out at 5. Now, it's like you're working various hours from home, working in different ways, doing different things differently, and time is irrelevant to a lot of this. There's no more 8 to 5 as it defines you. You might be doing your job at midnight because you can't sleep. So you're writing that that grant that you would usually write during the day, but you're writing that grant at night because you're having trouble sleeping or whatever. So time is totally changed for us. Because you know why? We're in the age of Aquarius, the age of Aquarius. Those poor people from the 60s, how many of them didn't live to see the age of Aquarius?
Well, I don't think it happens till December 21st.
Okay. But how blessed are we to be living this time to see that change? Huh?
Hope we make it.
Hope we make it. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for the beautiful conversation. I really think that's what Woke House is all about. That right there, hanging out with other people and thinking about things deeply and talking about them. So, George, I don't know if you have these chants. If you want to put them up on the screen, go for it. If not, we're going to start doing our closing chants. Contemplation of the 10 perfecting qualities. May I be generous and helpful. May I be pure, virtuous, and well-disciplined. May I not be selfish. May I be strenuous, energetic, and persevering. May I be patient. May I be able to bear and forbear the wrongs of others. May I be honest and truthful. May I be firm and resolute. May I be kind, compassionate, and friendly. May I be humble, calm, quiet, unruffled, and serene. Discourse on loving kindness. Just as a mother would protect her only child even at her own life's risk, so let everyone cultivate a boundless heart towards all beings. Let our hearts of boundless love pervade the whole world, so that all beings without exception might be happy. Closing dedication of merit. If I have attained any merit by the result of this practice, may it be accredited to all beings everywhere. May they find the source of suffering and extinguish it. May they find the source of happiness and increase it. May all beings dwell in ultimate unalloyed nibbana. We'll bow to the shrine 3 times. We will bow to our Sangha brothers and sisters with smiles of gratitude. Closing bell. I watched Tom Hanks play Mr. Rogers. That movie.
Oh, that was good. Yeah.
At first, I didn't know if I could really get into it because it looked like a Saturday Night Live skit where he was playing Mr. Rogers. But I gave it like 10 minutes, and then suddenly he became Mr. Rogers, you know? But I thought what was interesting is one of the things they said in that movie is that Mr. Rogers actually slowed down his speech patterns and slowed down his movements to set the tone of the program.
Yeah.
That there was never any rush in that program. I thought that was a beautiful thing to teach kids. And Mr. Rogers was never in a rush. Always appreciating and smelling the flowers. Right? Any closing thoughts?
I saw that movie, and I think that Tom Hanks did a really good job, showing that. And as far as Mr. Rogers is concerned, I think that he's a really great example of, gratitude. Like he really was grateful for all the people that were in his life, literally. Even the people who were not so nice to him, he was thankful to them too.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it's a good example to think about.
Absolutely.
There's a speech that he gave to Congress. If you get a chance, I don't know if they did that in the movie, but he understood that educating children and creating a safe environment for children and healing the trauma that's usually inflicted on children would make a better society and a better nation.
Yeah. He understood that at a very deep level. Pretty amazing. One of the other things that they bring out is that, he was a beautiful human being, but they said he worked at it. So just like we come to Woke House and we chant and we meditate and we think about loving kindness and compassion and generosity, and we say these chants that say, may I please be generous and kind and loving and think about others before myself. Mr. Rogers every day had a prayer life, and he prayed for so many people around the world, and he studied scripture, and he took time for meditation, and he took time to appreciate other people and try to see their perspective. According to his wife, it didn't come easy. It was something he had to work at. So I thought that was beautiful.
And he was raised I don't know what his experience was, but we all experience trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And so we all have to work at our reaction to that and how we're going. That's where our free will comes in, is how do we choose to respond? And when you don't have control, like I realized, like my early life, I didn't have control over what happened to me. I was in no way free will, got to express free will whatsoever. And especially if I wanted to live to see another day, like I better respond in a way that was one of survival. And those lessons get ingrained in you. And so when you decide that you don't want to respond in the way that was done to you,
Yeah.
like you take to work to choose, because your gut reaction is to defend yourself or to fight back or to do whatever, and to continue to consciously want to choose a loving response does take a lot of practice.
Yeah, definitely.
Your experience.
That's something that I've been working with for, a couple of months now. Is when somebody disagrees with me, I don't have to see it as a form of attack. And that's all I literally have to do is when somebody's disagreeing with me, I would usually start like turning red and feel embarrassed or unsure of what was happening. And I would just think, I don't have to see this as an attack. I don't have to experience this as an attack. And immediately, I'm calm. And I can hear them. And I can listen to their perspective, All right, guys, we're going